Damps.
Guys, I'm making this video out of love. I want to make sure that when my brothers go get a hair transplant, that they don't just look good on YouTube, but they look good in real life. I see hair transplants in real life. I'm not hating. I never intended to hate. I love that men are willing to go and get their confidence boosted. Watch it in its entirety, especially if you haven't had a hair transplant yet or if you plan on getting another one. But this isn't something I see as somebody who cut hair before. This was one of the bigger problems I've seen with hair transplants that people want to get nice haircuts with after, right? This is a permanent resolution to hair loss. It's not temporary. You can't reverse it. This is permanent. So if it's permanent, make sure it's getting done properly. I'm making this video for hair transplant patients and I'm speaking from the barber's perspective. What makes haircuts look nice or hairstyles? Evenly distributed density. So when you have too much density in one spot, it looks weird. So that's why I don't feel like 5,000 grafts to just plug up a hairline. That's just too much. But I'm gonna tell you what's more important than density. What's more important than density is the angle at which the hair is implanted. How is the scalp being covered? Is it following the direction that your natural hair is flowing in? And there lays a big problem. Okay, so I have a video right here. I'll pull it up in the back. And you're gonna see the doctor pointing out natural grafts and then implanted grafts of a patient.
So if you see this hair, which is close to 20 degrees to the scalp, this is the natural angle. Let us see the transplanted hair which was done to this patient earlier. If you see this one, this is around 80 degrees to the skin. So that means this is obtuse and the natural angle that we have seen on that side is acute. So there is a discrepancy between this 80 degree and this close to 20 degree. So this is to be avoided. How to avoid all those things? And it's very essential that the transplanting team should know about the signs of these angles, how the hair moves after transplantation.
Now I want to take just this little sample piece right here. Now the hair is pointed, the hair shaft is pointed in a direction, right? And that direction isn't straight up. And the reason being is when you want to get waves or when you want a hairline that's straight, your hair needs to be angled a certain way. And what ends up happening, especially like we can look at waves, is the hair falls on top of each other. And that even distribution of hair facing the same direction is what type of coverage you want. You know what I mean? You don't want more density. If you have a bunch of density that's pointing in the wrong direction, I'll give you an example. That's a cowlick. A lot of people don't like their cowlicks. So what you don't want a bunch of hair pointing in different directions. You want your hair pointing in the same direction. So when you're sending the picture to your hair transplant doctor, and even after that, when you get into the procedure room, you need to trust your doctor and trust that they will implant the hair at the right exact angle that you need it to be implanted in. I think just by doing that, you could cut a situation where they want to implant 5,000 grafts because they want to fill it up. They want you to leave and they want you to think that your hair is going to look perfect, and it's not really manageable. If you have certain hairs growing at 90 degrees straight out of your head, let's say like Asian hair, straight directly out of your head, and then the rest of your hair is growing at this angle, I mean, I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And that leads me to my next point. How often are you sharing what your goals are with your doctor? You know what I mean? Because your goal is not just to have hair. You're gonna wanna rock specific hairstyles. And when you get a hair transplant, to me, I think of like plastic surgery. I think of a finished product that you like. You need to understand what you need out of your hair. Now, if you were just gonna do a longer hairstyle, maybe dreadlocks, maybe braids, then you'll get away with that hair follicle pointing straight 80 degrees out of the head. But if you're gonna cut your hair down, short curly styles or short buzz wave cuts, stuff like that, shorter styles, you can't afford to have certain hairs injected into your head at angles that don't match the other angles in your head. You can't manage it. There's going to be a big learning curve in terms of understanding how to style it, because you will not be able to do every style. We want evenly distributed density. So I don't care how much hair you're losing here. It's not plugging 5,000 grafts into the front of your head. A lot of times you probably don't need that. And you know, I have a perfect example for you. So with hair fiber, all right, we have our own hair fiber, Boost hair fiber. I'll pull up some videos in the back. With hair fiber, less is more. You don't want to cover up everything on your head. You want it to look realistic. You just need a light touch of hair fiber. That adds enough density to evenly distribute that hairline across and make it look sharp. Now, if we put too much hair fiber, it starts to look cakey. And the same thing with a hair transplant. If you put too much hairs at whatever angle, it just looks weird. And I'll pull up some examples. We'll look at this example of, but I can see when the hair is unruly. And if we look at this picture, for example, here, you can see there's too much density at that front area. It doesn't look natural. And if you put too much density in one area that doesn't match density in the other area, you want to make sure when you add density to a certain area of your head, like I would do with hair fibers, you don't put too much. Your density needs to be evenly distributed, and a lot of times you don't need that much density that they're offering. They're offering everybody 5,000 grafts. I see that. What matters more than the density is the angle at which the hair is implanted, because that'll control how the hair lays down and in what direction. And that will essentially lead to the type of coverage you get. Make sure you discuss this during your consultation with your doctor, and just think about it for a second. What's harder, do you think? I think it's harder to implant 5,000 hairs into your head? Or do you think it's harder to make sure that 2,000 hairs are implanted at the perfectly right angle that will match the other hairs, the areas that you're filling in on your head? And if you ask me, it's harder to match the 2,000 at the right angle, because that takes precision. The 5,000, you can just dump them in, right? Not to make it sound easy, but you can just dump them in. The 2,000, you got to pay attention. You got to hit the right angle every single time. There is human error, but precision. That's what you want. And that's where 2,000 makes more sense than 5,000. And what you want is even distribution. You don't want too much hair implanted into one spot. You want even distribution. That's what makes a nice haircut. Okay, and then finally, very important, and I think doctors need to be doing this more often, but they need to sit down with you and they need to get somebody like me in the room, an image consultant, somebody who understands this, understands how hair moves after the transplant. And you guys got to go over, figure out what styles you intend on doing. Because based on those styles, you're gonna require a certain level of precision. And then during that consultation, you'll figure out if you trust the doctor to handle that precision or not. But more is not better, and cheaper. Honestly, some words of advice: you're going in for a surgery. Price is your last question. How much does it cost? If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But I suggest you get the surgery that gives you the results that you can manage and that you can get a good job done with, versus being cheap but getting cheap results. This is what I would say as a barber. You're not getting a hair transplant just to have hair on your head. You're getting a hair transplant because you want your confidence up, you want to enhance your style, you want to look good. And this final point, get on Barber, guys.
Damps.